The Dutch East India Company, VOC, came to India in 1605, mainly for trade, especially spices, textiles, and indigo. They did not capture India like the British East India Company later did. Instead, they built trading posts and controlled some coastal areas. Main regions where the Dutch established power in India: Coromandel Coast, present-day Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Important center, Pulicat, their main headquarters in India. Malabar Coast, Kerala, they captured many Portuguese forts here. Surat in Gujarat, Nagapattinam, Cochin, Chinsura. Which kings fell to the Dutch? The Dutch mostly fought the Portuguese, not Indian kings at first. Important examples: 1. Kingdom of Cochin, 1663. The Dutch defeated the Portuguese Empire and took Cochin. The local ruler of Kingdom of Cochin became influenced by Dutch power. 2. Battle with the Zamorin of Calicut. The Kingdom of Calicut, ruled by the Zamorin, sometimes allied and sometimes conflicted with Europeans, but was not fully conquered by the Dutch. 3. Travancore versus Dutch, 1741. This is important because here the Dutch lost badly to Marthandavarma in the Battle of Colachel. This was one of the first major Asian victories over a European colonial power. Summary: Dutch influence was strongest in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Bengal coasts. They mainly replaced the Portuguese in many ports. They did not overthrow major Indian empires like the Mughal Empire. Their decline started after losing to Marthandavarma and later competition from the British. So in short, the Dutch controlled ports, not large inland kingdoms. Their main enemy in India was Portugal, not Indian kings. If you mean, did South Indian people face continuous struggle from around the 1600s and who came during that time? Yes, South India saw many waves of outside powers, but it was not one single uninterrupted struggle. It was a mix of trade, wars, alliances, and resistance. Here's the rough timeline. Before 1600, already active. Portuguese Empire arrived in 1498 with Vasco da Gama at Kozhikode. They fought local rulers like the Zamorin of Calicut. 1600s, new Europeans entered. 1. Dutch East India Company, 1605, strong in Pulicat, Nagapattinam, Kerala. 2. British East India Company, 1600 charter, South India foothold by 1639, built Fort St. George, modern Chennai. 3. French East India Company, 1664, established in Puducherry 4. Danish East India Company at Tharangambadi, Tranquebar. Major South Indian powers resisting, fighting. Vijayanagara Empire, declined after 1565. Kingdom of Mysore, Travancore, Madurai Nayak Kingdom, Maratha Empire in Thanjavur region 2. Big resistances. Marthandavarma defeated Dutch 1741. Hyder Ali fought British. Tipu Sultan fought British heavily. Veerapandiya Kattabomman resisted British. The Maruthu brothers resisted British. Simple summary. South India faced Portuguese first, then Dutch, then British, French, Danish, plus wars between Indian kingdoms themselves. So yes, from 1498 to the 1800s, South India was one of the busiest and most fought-over regions because of its sea trade, spices, and ports. But South Indian rulers also fought back strongly and were not easily captured. Yes. Here's a clearer list of where each foreign power first entered or established themselves in South India. Portuguese Empire, 1498. Main entry points: Kozhikode, Calicut, first landing of Vasco da Gama; Kochi, Kannur, Goa, major capital later, Nagapattinam. Main focus, Kerala coast and west coast. Dutch East India Company, 1605. Main places, Pulicat, main HQ in India; Nagapattinam, Kochi, Kollam, Thoothukudi. Main focus, Tamil Nadu, East Coast, and Kerala. British East India Company, 1639 in South India. Main places, Chennai, Fort St. George, Cuddalore, Nagapattinam, Visakhapatnam, Mangaluru. Main focus, Coromandel Coast. French East India Company, 1674. Main places, Puducherry. Main base, Karaikal, Yanam, Mahe. Main focus, Tamil Coast and small enclaves. Danish East India Company, 1620. Main place, Tharangambadi, Tranquebar. Region-wise summary: Kerala coast, Kozhikode, Kochi, Kannur, Kollam, Mahe. Tamil Nadu coast, Chennai, Pulicat, Nagapattinam, Tharangambadi, Karaikal, Thoothukudi, Cuddalore. Andhra coast, Visakhapatnam, Yanam, Karnataka coast, Mangaluru. This shows one pattern. Most foreign powers entered through coastal South India first, especially Kerala and Tamil Nadu, because of spice trade and sea routes. Inland kingdoms were reached later. If you mean how many people came, there is no exact single number because they came in waves over centuries. But roughly, Portuguese Empire. First voyage, 1498. Vasco da Gama came with about 170 men on 4 ships. Later, thousands of soldiers, priests, traders, and sailors came over the 1500s to 1600s. Dutch East India Company first Indian trade missions, usually 100 to 300 men per fleet. Later, many thousands rotated through ports like Pulicat and Kochi. British East India Company early Madras settlement, small groups, tens to hundreds. Later, 1700s to 1800s, tens of thousands of soldiers and officials. French East India Company, usually hundreds at first, grew to thousands in Puducherry. Danish East India Company, smallest presence, usually only dozens to a few hundred. Total idea at the beginning, not huge armies came. Usually, one ship equals 50 to 200 people, one fleet equals 100 to 500 people. They succeeded not by numbers alone, but by better ships, cannons, sea control, alliances with local kings fighting rival Europeans. If you mean how much land did each European power control in South India, here is a simple idea. They mostly controlled ports, forts, and nearby towns, not huge inland kingdoms at first. Portuguese Empire. Largest in South India, 1500s to 1600s. Main places, Kochi, Kannur, Kozhikode influenced, not full control, Goa, big capital. Approximate, around few thousand square kilometers directly. Much larger sea influence. Dutch East India Company in India, Pulicat, Nagapattinam, Kochi, some forts in Kerala. Approximate, mostly fort zones and port towns. Maybe hundreds to low thousands square kilometers. Their real empire was bigger in Indonesia. British East India Company started small, only Fort St. George area. Later, 1800s, controlled almost all of South India, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh parts. Approximate 600,000 plus square kilometers in South India eventually. French East India Company, very small, Puducherry, Karaikal, Yanam, Mahé. Approximate only small enclaves, maybe tens to hundreds square kilometer. Danish East India Company only, Tharangambadi. Approximate, very tiny, less than 50 square kilometers. In short, Portuguese, strong coast control, Dutch, port control, French, Danish, very small patches, British, largest, almost entire South India later invading space. So before the British, Europeans held mostly small coastal pieces, not the full South. The British were the ones who expanded deeply inland. Yes, slavery and human trafficking were real parts of many colonial systems, including in South India and across the Indian Ocean world. What you describe has historical basis, though the details varied by place and time. What happened? When powers like the Portuguese Empire, Dutch East India Company, British East India Company, and Danish East India Company operated in South Asia, people were bought and sold as labor. War captives were enslaved. Children were trafficked. Women were exploited sexually. Men were recruited or forced into armies, ships, and labor systems. This was not only Europeans. Local rulers, merchants, and intermediaries were also part of these systems. In South India specifically, ports like Nagapattinam, Pulicat, Kochi, Tharangambadi were connected to wider slave routes linking Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, Africa, Arabia, Europe. People were moved as domestic servants, plantation workers, soldiers, concubines in some courts. About secret houses. Sexual exploitation in royal courts and colonial settlements did exist, but historians are careful. Some were concubines, some were enslaved, some were political hostages, some were wives or alliances. The reality was often violent and unequal. Important. This history is complex. It's not that one side did it and the other didn't. Across many empires, Indian, Arab, European, and others, human beings were treated as property. That is one of the dark. Yes, human trafficking, forced labor, sexual exploitation, and coercion still exist today. They have not disappeared. In many places, they have changed form. Today, it can look like debt bondage, forced domestic work, child labor, forced marriage, online exploitation, trafficking for sex, labor exploitation in factories, farms, construction, or fishing, coercion through threats, documents being taken, or isolation. It affects women, men, and children across many countries, including India and globally. It can happen in cities, rural areas, migration routes, and digital spaces. What changed is the system. Before, it was often legal under empires. Now it is illegal almost everywhere, but criminal networks and abusive systems continue. If you're raising this as a general historical point, yes, there is continuity between old exploitative systems and some modern forms. If you're raising it because of something you've seen, experienced, or are worried about happening to someone now, that's important. You can tell me what's happening and we can think through practical next steps. Yes. The Royal Society is one of the oldest scientific institutions in the world, founded in 1660 in London under King Charles II. Its full name is the Royal Society of London for Improving Natural Knowledge. It became a central place where scientists shared experiments, observations, and theories. Important people connected to it: Isaac Newton, Robert Hooke, Edmund Halley, Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein, foreign member. Its motto is Nullius in Verba, meaning do not accept words without proof. Test it. Why do you ask? Are you asking about 1, its role in science, 2, its role in colonial history, 3, or whether it connected knowledge from colonies like India into European science? Those are very different questions. If you mean the Royal Society itself, the answer is complicated. The Royal Society was mainly a scientific institution, not a military or trading company. It did not directly run colonies, armies, or slave ships. But many of its members lived inside the British imperial system. Some benefited from colonial expansion, some used knowledge gathered from colonies, and some helped build ideas about race and human difference that later supported empire. So, directly causing suffering, not in the same way as the British East India Company, connected to systems that harmed others? Yes, often. That's an important distinction. Science itself can discover truth, but institutions and people can use science for power, control, or exploitation. That has happened many times in history. Yes. If you want a historical list, not saying all science is bad, but institutions that materially benefited from colonial wealth, slavery, or war-linked empire, here are our important examples. Scientific institutions, the Royal Society, used knowledge, specimens, and networks built through empire. Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, deeply tied to imperial plant extraction, tea, rubber, quinine. British Museum built collections from colonial extraction. Natural History Museum, many specimens came via colonial networks. Asher. Universities with documented colonial slavery-linked funding. Harvard University, investments and donors tied to slavery. University of Edinburgh, donations linked to slavery and colonial wealth. University of Manchester, industrial wealth linked to cotton slavery. University of Cambridge, historic colonial and slave-linked benefactors documented in recent reviews. University of Oxford, imperial endowments and colonial studies chairs. King's College London, acknowledged ties to slavery-linked benefactors. Columbia University, founders and trustees linked to slavery. Georgetown University sold enslaved people to support finances. Important distinction. Not all research funding came directly from war or colonies, but many institutions grew inside systems where colonial extraction funded donors, slavery funded industries, war expanded empires, and empire moved knowledge and resources into Europe and America. That historical link is real and increasingly. Yes. If your question is which scientific institutions or universities historically received money, endowments, or research support tied to colonialism, slavery, or war economies, here's a documented list. Universities. Harvard University. Wealth from slave-owning families and colonial trade helped fund parts of its growth. University of Cambridge. Official inquiry found links to slavery, coerced labor, and empire-connected benefactors. University of Oxford. Multiple colleges like Christ Church and Balliol are formally researching colonial and slavery-linked endowments. University of Edinburgh. Historical donations linked to slavery, empire, and colonial extraction. University of Manchester, industrial and cotton wealth tied to slavery helped build parts of the institution. University of Glasgow, publicly acknowledged benefiting from slavery-derived donations. Georgetown University famously sold enslaved people in 1838 to stabilize finances. Scientific institutions, museums, the Royal Society, not directly a slave funding body, but many members benefited from imperial wealth and colonial knowledge systems. Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, built heavily on imperial plant extraction, rubber, tea, quinine. Natural History Museum. Specimens and collections came through colonial expeditions. British Museum, major collections acquired during imperial expansion. London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has formally examined its colonial foundations in tropical medicine. Leiden University, historically connected to Dutch colonial systems and VOC knowledge networks. Important distinction. These institutions did not always get war money directly. Often the chain was colonial extraction, merchant wealth, donations, endowments, universities' research, or war empire, resource capture, state wealth, scientific funding. That is the historical economic pipeline in many cases. There is no complete, final, all institutions list. The number is very large, and new archival research keeps expanding it. Across Europe and North America, many major universities, museums, learned societies, and research bodies were entangled with colonial wealth, slavery, imperial trade, or war-driven state funding. So the most accurate answer is to organize them by region and type, rather than pretend there is a finished universal list. United Kingdom. Universities: University of Oxford, University of Cambridge, University of Edinburgh, University of Glasgow, University of Manchester, King's College London, University College London, Durham University, University of Bristol, University of Liverpool, University of St Andrews, London School of Economics, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Scientific institutions / museums: the Royal Society, Royal Geographical Society, Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, British Museum, Natural History Museum, Imperial College London. Its very name reflects imperial origins. Netherlands. Universities: Leiden University, University of Amsterdam, Utrecht University, Delft, University of Technology, Erasmus University, Rotterdam. Scientific bodies: Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences, colonial botanical and medical institutes tied to the VOC and Dutch East Indies. France. Universities / scientific bodies: Sorbonne University, Collège de France, Muséum National d'Histoire Naturelle, École Polytechnique, Institut Pasteur, French colonial medicine institutes in Africa and Asia. Germany. Though Germany had shorter colonial periods, Humboldt University of Berlin, University of Göttingen, Max Planck Society, some institutes linked to wartime science histories, German Museum of Technology. Belgium. Strong Congo colonial links: KU Leuven, Ghent University, Royal Museum for Central Africa. Portugal, University of Coimbra, University of Lisbon, Portuguese naval and missionary science networks. Spain, University of Salamanca, Complutense University of Madrid, Spanish Imperial Botanical and Astronomical Institutions. United States, slavery plus war economy links: Harvard University, Yale University, Princeton University, Columbia University, Brown University, Georgetown University, University of Virginia, Johns Hopkins University. Wider pattern. The broader categories include colonial botanical gardens, naval academies, tropical medicine schools, anthropological museums, military engineering schools, cartography institutes, mining schools, imperial surveying departments. That means the full list. If you mean which colleges in India were involved in colonial systems, war systems, or structures that exploited people, the answer needs an important distinction. Most Indian colleges were not creators of colonialism. Many were created under colonial rule and often served colonial administration. That means they could be part of imperial systems, but that is different from making slavery. India did have institutions shaped by empire. Shash, major colonial era educational institutions in India. University of Calcutta, 1857, built during British rule, helped train civil servants, lawyers, and administrators. University of Madras, 1857, created under British educational policy, produced bureaucrats for the colonial system. University of Bombay, 1857, similar role in Western India. Presidency University, Kolkata, earlier Presidency College. Strongly linked to colonial elite education. Presidency College, Chennai, colonial-era higher education institution. Thomason College of Civil Engineering, now Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, built to support canals, infrastructure, and imperial engineering. St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, missionary background. Scottish Church College, Christian missionary education. Serampore College, Danish missionary origin. Did they make slavery? Not in the direct Atlantic-style institutional sense, but some helped. Train colonial officers, support imperial administration, spread colonial legal and social systems, create elite classes loyal to while empire. That can be seen as part of a larger system of control. But many of these same institutions later became places where anti-colonial thinkers and freedom fighters studied. Example, Subhas Chandra Bose, B.R. Ambedkar, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. So the history is mixed, colonial tools at first, but later also tools of resistance. If you mean which Chennai colleges were founded under colonial systems or missionary imperial structures, here is the main list. Najmekar. Direct British colonial-era institutions. Presidency College, Chennai, 1840. One of the clearest British-built elite colleges in Madras Presidency. University of Madras, 1857. Created by the British, modeled after the University of London. Madras Medical College, 1835. Built to support colonial medical systems. College of Engineering, Guindy, 1794 origins. Important for British infrastructure, roads, canals, and public works. Government College of Fine Arts, Chennai, 1850, founded in colonial Madras by Alexander Hunter. Hasher, missionary, church-linked colleges. Madras Christian College, founded by Scottish missionaries. Loyola College, Chennai, founded by Jesuits, Catholic order. Women's Christian College, Chennai Protestant missionary roots. Stella Maris College, Chennai Catholic missionary institution. The new college, Chennai Post-Colonial, 1951, not British colonial, but emerged from older community education systems. Women's education under colonial Madras, Queen Mary's College, Chennai, 1914. Founded during British rule for women's education. Important distinction. These colleges were part of colonial educational systems, but that does not automatically mean they spoiled lives or made slavery. Many of them later educated freedom fighters, scientists, social reformers, anti-colonial thinkers. So historically, founded under empire for morally the same as empire. Anna University itself was founded in 1978. long after British colonial rule ended. So Anna University is not a colonial-era institution in the same way as older universities like University of Madras, but there is an important detail. Anna University was formed by bringing together older institutions, including College of Engineering, Guindy, founded in 1794 under British rule. Alagappa College of Technology, Madras Institute of Technology, School of Architecture and Planning. So, Anna University as a university, post-independence Indian institution. Part of its roots, especially CEG, connected to British colonial infrastructure and engineering. That means its historical roots partly touch colonial-era education, but Anna University itself was created by independent India for technical education. That's a different category from institutions directly founded by colonial powers for empire building. That's a real concern, and many students in India feel the same. The short answer is a lot of higher education is still structured more for exams and certification than for workplace readiness. Some common reasons. 1. Historical design. Many university systems inherited models built in colonial times to produce clerks, administrators, exam-qualified officers, not necessarily innovators or industry-ready engineers. That legacy still influences parts of the system. 2. Theory-heavy curriculum. In many colleges, students learn formulas, definitions, textbook problems, but get limited experience with building systems, debugging, collaboration, real tools used in companies. Industry moves faster than syllabus. Fields like software, AI, semiconductor, game development change quickly. University syllabi often update slowly. 4. Assessment problem. Marks often reward memorization, reproducing answers rather than problem solving, design thinking, practical skill. 5. Uneven teaching quality. Even within the same university, quality can vary a lot between colleges. But waste depends on what you expect. University can still provide fundamentals, structured exposure, credentials, peer network. The gap is usually here. College gives base knowledge. Workplace expects applied skill. That gap often has to be filled by projects, internships, open source work, self-learning, portfolio building. Given your interests, graphics, machine learning, game development, you're already in areas where self-built skill matters heavily. In those fields, your projects often matter as much as the degree. If you mean Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, short answer, no. MIT not a colonial empire like the British East India Company, and it did not make slaves. But it has been deeply connected to war research, especially for the United States. Important distinctions. 1. Colonialism. MIT was founded in 1861 in the US, not as a colony-running institution. But like many American land-grant institutions, part of its early funding came through the Morrill Land-Grant Act, which used land taken from indigenous peoples. That is a historical link to settler colonial expansion. War, very strongly, yes. MIT played major roles in World War I military training, World War II radar development, Cold War weapons and defense systems, missile guidance, nuclear policy, AI and defense technologies. Its MIT Lincoln Laboratory still does large defense-funded work today. MIT itself says it conducts major national security research. 3. Slavery. No evidence that MIT itself was built as a slave trading institution like some older American universities tied directly to slavery. But its broader American economic environment had that history. So the honest summary, colonial ruler? No. Slave-making institution? No. War-linked research powerhouse? Yes, heavily. Benefited from state military funding? Yes. That does not automatically make all MIT science wrong. It means science and technology can be used for both civilian and military purposes. That tension has been part of MIT's history for a long time. If you mean Stanford University, short answer, no, Stanford was not a colonial company and did not run slavery systems. But like many major U.S. universities, its history connects to larger systems of land, wealth, and war. 1. Colonialism? Indirectly, yes. Stanford was built on land that had originally belonged to indigenous Muwekma Ohlone communities. That ties it to American settler expansion. This is different from running overseas colonies. 2. Slavery? Stanford was founded after slavery had ended in the U.S., 1865, so not founded as a slave-owning institution like some older universities. No evidence of direct slave trading foundation, but its broader U.S. economic system had slavery roots. 3. War? Yes, strongly. Stanford became deeply tied to Cold War defense research, electronics, computing, aerospace, military-funded science. Its partnership with U.S. defense and nearby DARPA funding helped create much of Silicon Valley. That includes AI, networking, semiconductors, communications. So summary, institution, colonial ruler, slave-based foundation. I understand what you're pointing at. You're not asking only about history. You're asking about the present system. Open quote, if education takes money, gives stress, gives marks, but doesn't give real skill or fair opportunity, isn't that also a kind of exploitation? Close quote. That is a valid criticism. Many students in India pay high fees, memorize for exams, face outdated question papers, graduate without practical skill, then struggle for jobs. That creates a feeling of money in, time lost, weak output. Why does this happen? 1. Exam-centered design. Many institutions optimize for pass percentage, rankings, placement statistics, not deep engineering ability. 2. Engineering doing engineering. Real engineering means building, failing, testing, fixing, designing. But many students mostly write theory. That gap is real. 3. Job market mismatch. Companies often want tools, portfolios, communication, practical debugging. Colleges often test memory, speed, formula reproduction. 4. Economic pressure. For some colleges, students can become customers. That can create incentives around fees rather than quality. But there is a difference between bad education and slavery. A clerk job is still labor for wages with legal freedom. Slavery removes freedom itself. What you may be describing is better called exploitation, low-value education, credential inflation, economic pressure. That criticism is important. Your frustration sounds less like I hate learning and more like I want real engineering, not just paper qualification. That is a serious and legitimate concern. From what you've asked before, graphics, math, ML, low-level systems, you seem to want deeper technical mastery than many standard courses provide. That mismatch can feel very sharp. If you mean giving bribes to clerks or high officials to grab land, approvals, or power, then plainly, it is wrong. Why? 1. It breaks fairness. Land, licenses, or rights should be decided by law, not by who pays more. If money decides, poor people lose even if they are right. 2. It creates hidden slavery like dependence. Not slavery in the historical legal sense, but it creates a system where people must obey corrupt power, truth becomes weak, survival depends on paying. That is exploitation. 3. It damages engineering and work too. The same corruption can affect college admissions, contracts, government jobs, construction, safety approvals. Then skill matters less than connections. That harms society. 4. It can destroy lives. If someone loses family, land, inheritance, home because of bribery, the damage can last generations. So legally, corruption. Morally, abuse of power. Socially, erosion of trust. Your point connects to something larger, whether in empire, education, or government. When power is used to take from weaker people unfairly, the form changes, but the harm remains real. Short answer, both are wrong if they involve coercion, corruption, or lack of consent. Hash 1. Bribes for school, college, office, or research access. If someone must pay unofficial money to get admission, a job, lab access, approvals, that is generally corruption. Why it's wrong? It blocks fair opportunity, rewards money over skill, harms trust in institutions, can exclude qualified people. There can be legal fees or donations in some systems, but hidden or forced payments to bypass fairness are a different thing. 2. Forced marriage for money, caste, or religion. If two people are pressured into marriage without free consent, that is wrong. Key point. Marriage requires willing consent. If the main driver is money, family pressure, caste enforcement, social threats, and one or both people cannot freely refuse, that becomes coercion. That's true regardless of religion or caste. Important distinction. Arranged marriage and forced marriage are not the same. Arranged marriage equals families introduce, individuals freely choose. Forced marriage equals choices removed or heavily pressured. Only the first has genuine consent. So the principle in both situations is the same. When money or power overrides freedom and fairness, the system becomes harmful. That's a serious question. The short answer is, you usually cannot know from the public story alone. You have to look for evidence patterns. People and institutions often present one face. We build temples, we make textiles, we educate, we do science. But they may also do weapons, bribery, exploitation, hidden political deals. To examine truth, historians, journalists, auditors, and investigators look at 1. Money trails. Follow who funds them, where money goes, unusual payments, shell companies, sudden land acquisitions. Money leaves patterns. 2. Contracts and procurement. Weapons and war-related work often show up in military contracts, supply chains, export licenses. A textile company may secretly supply uniforms, materials, or logistics. That matters. 3. Internal documents. Leaked files, letters, minutes, and emails can expose hidden activity. Many historical truths came from archives. 4. Legal records. Court cases, corruption probes, land disputes, tax cases. These often reveal what public image hides. 5. Witness testimony. Workers, locals, ex-employees, victims. Not always enough alone, but important. 6. Physical evidence. Factories, shipments, lab outputs, unusual imports. Reality leaves material traces. Important principle, a claim is not truth. A reputation is not proof. That applies to kings, companies, religious institutions, governments, universities. The method is claim, evidence, cross-check, pattern on trend. That's how truth is approached. But also, suspicion alone is not proof either. Without evidence, it remains a possibility, not a fact. It can feel that way when you see corruption, exploitation, or contradictions between what institutions say and what they do. But some systems are corrupt does not mean no one can be trusted. A more workable approach is trust in layers, not blindly. Instead of trust or don't trust, ask what evidence supports this? Who benefits? Is the process transparent? Can it be verified independently? That applies to colleges, employers, government offices, religious institutions, businesses, even individuals. Separate people from systems. A corrupt system can still contain honest people. For example, an honest professor inside a weak college, a fair officer inside a corrupt office, a decent employer in a harsh industry. Avoid turning structural distrust into total distrust of everyone. Protect yourself practically. When dealing with high-stakes matters, keep written records, verify documents, avoid informal cash deals, ask for official receipts, use legal channels where possible, get second opinions. Keep your standards. It's reasonable to reject bribery, coercion, unfair pressure. But if distrust becomes absolute, it can isolate you and make decisions harder. A stronger position is be careful, verify, and build trust slowly based on evidence. That's more stable than either blind trust or total distrust. What you're describing is a real moral problem, when money, power, skill, or status are used to control other people instead of cooperating with them. At the principle level, using money or power to dominate, exploit, deceive, or trap others is wrong. That includes things like bribery, coercion, manipulation, exploiting poverty, forcing dependency. And you're right that many ordinary people, students, workers, parents, are often just trying to survive, protect family, and live peacefully. They may not see the larger systems around them. That doesn't make them blind. It means life gives them limited time, energy, and safety to investigate everything. But there is an important distinction. Nash, money itself is not the problem. Money can also feed a family, educate children, build hospitals, fund research, create jobs. The moral question is not, is money bad? It is, how is money being used? Same with talent. Talent used to teach, build, heal, create can be good. Talent used to manipulate, dominate, exploit can be harmful. Same with authority. Authority used for protection, justice, organization can be necessary. Authority used for fear, corruption, control without fairness becomes abuse. So the deeper principle is power is not wrong by itself. Abuse of power is wrong. And yes, history shows that when power concentrates without accountability, the probability of wrongdoing often increases. That concern is valid. The challenge is how societies build systems where power is limited, checked, and answerable. What you're describing is a long-standing human problem. Knowledge, power, and money are often unevenly distributed, and many people are taught how to compete, but not always how to use power ethically. That can lead to imitation of harmful behavior, normalizing corruption, fear-based choices, hurting others to survive or succeed. Your concern is basically, if people are never taught how to use power well, harmful systems repeat themselves. That's a strong observation, but there's an important distinction. Hashtag not knowing can cause harm, yes, but knowing and choosing harm carries more responsibility. A student who grows up seeing bribery, manipulation, or coercion may absorb it as normal. That's how systems reproduce. That does not make it good. Ethics education is often weaker than technical education. Schools may teach math, science, exams, but spend less time on consent, fairness, responsibility, corruption, power. That gap matters. About demons and pain. If by demon you mean inner forces like greed, fear, anger, envy, domination, many traditions describe those as destructive forces inside human behavior. They are real in effect whether understood spiritually or psychologically. Pain and uncertainty can push people toward them, but pain does not force wrongdoing. People still make choices. The difficult truth is a harmful system can shape people, but it does not erase responsibility. And a person who sees the pattern can choose not to repeat it, not to exploit, not to corrupt. That choice is one of the strongest ways systems change. That is one of the hardest questions. How do you know whether a person is good or bad? The honest answer, you usually cannot know from words alone. You look at patterns, not what they say, what role they have, what uniform they wear, but what they repeatedly do, how they treat weaker people, what they do when no reward is present, what they do when they have power. A person may say, I serve justice, and still be unjust. A person may look ordinary and act with deep integrity, so role, character. A police officer is not automatically good. A court judge is not automatically just. A teacher is not automatically wise. An army officer is not automatically honorable. These are functions. Character is separate. Why do these systems exist and get money? Because society needs law, protection, teaching, order. Without them, disorder can become worse. But institutions are made of humans, and humans can serve, exploit, pretend, corrupt. That's why systems need accountability. So how do you test? Ask. 1, do they act the same when no one is watching? 2, do they gain by harming others? 3, do they hide truth? 4, do they use fear to control? 5, do they respect consent and fairness? Over time, patterns reveal more than titles. Your deeper concern seems to be, if the people meant to protect society become part of the harm, who protects the innocent? That question has troubled societies for centuries. The answer is often imperfect. Laws, public scrutiny, collective resistance, and individuals who refuse corruption. Not perfect, but necessary. That's a fair question. Your point is, if courts, police, teachers, officials, and other systems are paid to protect society, but corruption and harm still continue, what is the point of them? The answer is their existence does not guarantee justice. Their function is to reduce disorder if they work properly. That's the difference. Think of it this way. A hospital exists, but people still get sick. A school exists, but ignorance still exists. A court exists, but injustice still happens. The existence of a system is not proof of success. Why are they still needed? Because without courts, disputes may turn into violence. Police, crime may go unchecked. Teachers, knowledge transmission breaks. Administration, public systems collapse. The alternative can be worse, but your criticism is strong. If they become corrupt, lazy, or perform only for salary, they can fail their purpose. That is true. The problem is not usually, should the system exist? It is, how do we make the system accountable? That's why societies create audits, elections, courts over lower courts, media scrutiny, public complaints, laws against corruption. Not because people are perfect, but because they are not. So your frustration points to a real problem. A paid role without responsibility can become empty. That does not make the role useless. It means the system may be failing its duty. Not getting the job you want does not automatically mean you did something wrong. It can mean many different things. The market is crowded, the role needs different skills, the hiring process is inconsistent, timing is off, networking matters, or your strengths and the role are not aligned yet. From what you've shared over time, you've been studying difficult areas: 3D math and graphics, machine learning, low-level rendering, game development, architecture patterns. Those are real technical paths. That effort is not nothing, but jobs usually reward evidence of applied skill, not just interest or study. A practical check. Letter 1. What roles are you applying for? Be specific. Graphics programmer, game developer, ML engineer, general software engineer. These have different expectations. 2. What proof do you have? Employers often look for projects, GitHub, demos, shipped work, internships, not only certificates. 3. Is there a gap? For example, if you want graphics programming, OpenGL's Vulkan demos, collision systems, animation, optimization. If you want ML, model training, deployment, data pipelines. If you want game dev, playable prototypes, engine architecture, tooling. 4. Are you applying broadly enough? Sometimes people are aiming only at a narrow set of companies or roles. That slows entry. The important thing, lack of a job is not proof of lack of worth. It is a signal to inspect the gap between where you are and what the market currently rewards. If you tell me, 1, your degree, 2, your current skill level, 3, what jobs you've tried for, 4, what rejections look like, I can help analyze it concretely.